You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out. And these are things that most people just aren't sharing.
Who's going first? We're both like, got our hand on the holster. Where do you draw?
I think, so I wanted to talk about focus and consistency today. Why this is relevant. Just something I'm seeing more so in my clients, but also then obviously to us, of like just trying to do too much, too many projects, too many initiatives. You know, we've talked about bottlenecks and constraints on the show before. Like, I see a lot of our clients who are, below seven figures. Not that that's necessarily an indicator that they should be focused, but I mean, I think it is a little bit, but like they're trying to solve two bottlenecks at the exact same time. They already have limited bandwidth. Some of them are solopreneurs. Some of them don't even have, some of them a small team. And they're just like, it's that constant founder. I'm going to try to, get through as much as I can, take on as much as I can, because it's just me, without any consideration for like the fact that there's holidays, the fact that, school's out or whatever. And then just they find out that a lot of stuff's not getting done and like they're not hitting their goals. And it just got me thinking about even some of our stuff, like am I still trying to be on too many channels? Like, how would my life be easier if, even from like a marketing perspective, we just focused on being in less places, but better? And not necessarily repurposing and doing all this stuff that like technology has made so easy. So it's like, it's easy to be like, oh, I'll just post it to all 5 places at once. But it's like, if you're not there harvesting the opportunity, like, and then you have to customize things. It's like, I don't know, you can kind of easily spread yourself thin to the point where I don't think you're doing yourself any favors. So yeah, like focus and consistency. Maybe this is just a reminder for those that are in the grind, haven't picked their head up, and looked around for a second, to maybe do an audit on, are you trying to do too much? And is that maybe the thing that's preventing you from actually getting to where you want to be?
So let's make the case for focus. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what prevents focus. What are the things that cause people to be unfocused? Mm-hmm. And then let's give people some practical things to take away in terms of creating focus. Yep. So let's start with, why focus, Greg? Listen, Greg, I got a lot of things to do and they all need to get done. So if I only do a few of them, then there's more stuff on my plate that doesn't get done. What's that going to solve?
So, I mean, I think not having yes, there's always going to be a lot of stuff to get done, but I think not having a priority of what is the most important thing to get done, often leads us to maybe solving the right problem in the wrong order, which sometimes removes us from making any sort of noticeable progress. So I think that's one piece. And in order to prioritize, I think you need to have some sort of vision or target, like what are you creating? And I actually would say that maybe that's where a lot of people just fail, is like they don't actually have a target.
Yeah. You're stealing my second point, but I think you're right. Look, I'm reminded of a story, and then I forget the name of the person, so I'm not going to be able to attribute this properly. But he is an expert in the theory of constraints. Was a kind of disciple student of Dr. Ellie Goldratt, who wrote the book The Goal, and is kind of the father of the theory of constraints. Mm-hmm. And this guy was telling the story in a podcast about he got brought in by some big mining company to do some, leadership training, strategic planning with their leadership team. And it's a big company. There's like, I think, 100 people in the room. And so what he had everybody do was make a list of all the projects, initiatives that each of them are working on. They're all managers, right? Managers, senior managers, executives. Make a list of all the initiatives, all the things that they are working on, projects, initiatives, etc. Right? Committees, blah blah blah. Put each of them on a post-it note. Put it on the wall. Okay. And before you know it, the wall is filled with just hundreds of post-it notes, right? Because everybody's got, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 things that they're doing, right? It's
Mhm.
filled with post-it notes. And then he takes them through an exercise of defining the number one metric that actually drives results in their business. If we hit this one number, this one goal, if we do this one thing, we can be satisfied with our progress. We've done our jobs. And in their case, it was some metric related to, quantity of materials mined, whatever the mining was, right?
Mhm.
If we mine this much, that's it. Like we made it, we've hit our goals, everything else falls into place.
Right.
So then he asked them to remove any of the initiatives or any of the post-it notes that do not directly contribute to hitting that one goal. And he said it was shocking. Like 5% of the post-it notes out of 100 post-it notes, for example, 5 remained.
Mm.
Just the vast majority of the things that they were doing did not directly contribute to the most important goal target metric of the business. And I would contend, at a lower scale, mind you,
Yeah, yeah.
that's true for a lot of us.
I think two things came to me on that is the I think on the lower scale, and maybe this comes with maybe less experience or less counsel in the game, but if I could see how our clients, and even myself in certain stages where I would be able to convince myself that more of those stickies were relevant for that objective, which I think so. There's one piece of that, which is like, I can't tell exactly how this thing will apply to this goal, and it's probably a combination of, I'm not actually sure if how to define what the biggest
Yeah.
constraint actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that doing too many things and being spread thin is a form of intellectual laziness.
Mm.
What you're
Or
really
immaturity.
doing,
What about, yeah, immaturity too, I think.
sure. What you're really doing is saying, I don't want to actually think through what the critical priorities are, slash, I don't know how to. So instead of being smart about what I focus on, spend my time on, I'm going to try to do it all and hope that I get the right things. Like it's like in this list of 10 things I'm focused on, I hope I hit the right 2 or 3 just with
Yeah.
volume. Like kind of like scattered shotgun approaches, hit everything, hope you hit the right things. Whereas if yeah, it's easier said than done, right? But if you spent the
Mhm.
time, you know, um, what's that book called? The Road Less Stupid, Keith
Mhm.
Cunningham, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He calls it thinking time. You call it whatever you
Mhm.
want, right? But really, your job as a CEO, as a leader, is to be thinking more than you're doing, right? And if you can
Yeah.
dedicate the thinking time to actually prioritizing, deciding, assessing where your time is best spent, where
Mhm.
the payoff is greatest, you can probably knock 80% of that to-do list off right off the bat. But it requires some discipline.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, I think we've talked about this before, like earlier stages when you didn't have any help, you do kind of find yourself like, I'm doing lead gen, I'm obviously doing sales, I'm a part of client fulfillment. And yeah, you obviously are responsible for multiple areas of the business, but I think something that you've shared with me multiple times is like, despite the business's need for you to be active in all three of those areas and roles, your effort can still be focused for a quarter, for example, on solving the the constraint, which might be in any one of those three places. That doesn't mean you obviously relieve yourself of the day to day duties of sales and fulfillment. It's just that you're prioritizing extra time, maybe that thinking time or like the working on the business time towards this one bottleneck. And I think that's something that, we call it the whirlwind. It's like, clients come in and, for example, they don't have any sort of like plan for creating authority content, posting organically, pre ads. And it's like, in the beginning, you design that system and like you're like, all right, like I'm going to do daily LinkedIn posts, I'm going to do one YouTube video a week, and I'm going to send at least one email to my list. Like that could be literally the organic game plan that arguably could get you to a million just doing that consistently. The upfront effort of getting that going from having never done it before is going to take a lot of work, but maybe give that a quarter, find your rhythm, build the habit. Then that's whirlwind. Like you should keep doing that. Like, so the next quarter after that, like you got to maintain that while we focus on the next project or the next bottleneck. And I think a lot of people come in, at least our clients, and we always, like I was harping on this today. We force them. We very highly encourage them to focus on tops two initiatives, things, activities, areas that they're working on over the course of a quarter. Because when you add in just the general whirlwind of the stuff that they already have going on in the day-to-day life, home life, all that stuff, like you don't actually have as much free time to focus on the, like, call them special projects, right? Like say you free yourself up and you dedicate one full day a week to working on the business as the owner, and that 1 hour, that one day a week is towards these one or two projects. Like that's still only four, maybe depending upon the month, 5 days of the month that you're actually focused on these projects, and so maybe 15 hours for the whole quarter are dedicated to these one or two initiatives. And when you look at it like that, you're like, oh yeah, crap, I probably don't have enough time to have like 5 projects on my plate. Like, because if you look at Monday through Thursday as the day to day, and then Friday is I'm going to work on these special projects, I only got, 15 Fridays tops, not even a quarter, and 12 Fridays. Like, that's not a lot of time. Like, when you add it up, like, of just like work time.
There's no around making some hard choices, right? Like find me a business owner or a CEO that does not have a million things that they would like to fix.
Totally.
I got a million things I'd like to fix. I got a million things that are driving me nuts right now. I can't conceivably focus on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people that struggle with this the most are people with perfectionist tendencies.
Yes.
Right. You know who you are. And there's reasons for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly childhood, as usual, right? Like you had to be a perfectionist in order to, appease the authorities, that is your parents. So there's a whole, there's a whole story there to explore, right? But for better or for worse, that's who you are. You want everything to be just so nice and neat, tidy, in its right place. If anything is askew, it's going to drive you nuts. And you're going to have to find a way to get over that in business as a leader, because at any given point in time, no business is ever perfect. Every business, even successful businesses, have tons of problems. That's what we signed up for. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, is problems, right? And so there's an element of you just got to be able to let certain fires burn, as we've talked about in the past, right? Like let some problems go unaddressed, and you've got to be able to prioritize which problems are more worthy of your time in the immediate, and be okay with not addressing other things.
I agree. So what are some, like, I mean, you kind of already started going into some tactical things, but like for me, tactical is like we focus on, especially if you're solo, like no more than 2 kind of real initiatives for the quarter. And I'd argue that even if you have a team, still keep it fewer. But like if you have department heads that can tackle certain things that don't require your own, like your bandwidth as the owner, I sometimes can see that flex up to 3 or 4 kind of things, but still like fewer the better. One thing that we so outside of like limiting the number of projects, uh, the or objectives rather, um, the other thing that we do that I don't know if it's good or bad, but I almost feel like it's it's necessary. So when I look at like the client journey, um, like attract, convert, deliver, operate, if you will, scale. Um, attract and convert are more like grow the business, and then like deliver and scale or operate are more like make the business better, right? And we always try to have our clients focus on at least one initiative from each, because I know for us, a lot of our clients come to us because they're at capacity, they don't have enough time, their delivery and operations of delivery is jacked, and so they want to focus all their effort on that, which means they're not doing anything sales and marketing related, building attention, getting attention, capturing leads. And so like they unlock some capacity and then they're still scrambling for a sale. And so it's like, we kind of like, hey, if your focus for this quarter is, on the operations and delivery side, you have to have at least one thing that you're doing that will actively keep leads coming in the door and calls getting on your calendar. Like that is like a non-negotiable. Like you have to do it. It doesn't need to be like a big crazy project. It could be, doubling down on a certain content channel, or, just making sure that you're still doing something on that front to keep leads flowing and conversations happening is like imperative. And that's been really helpful I know for us and our clients, because I think those maybe it's just the perfectionists, but I do see like a lot of the perfectionists end up being, they want the product to be perfect and they won't market it until they think it's perfect, which leaves them in kind of that feast or famine cycle that a lot of, I think, entrepreneurs run into. So those are two things that we actively do.
Yeah. So here's a good test, right? So you have your goal in mind, you have your target, whether that's revenue, profit, gross margin, doesn't matter, right? But you know how much money you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And you make a list of all your priorities, initiatives, and you your projects rather, you prioritize them.
Mm-hmm.
What you're left with, ask yourself two questions. Are all these necessary to achieve the goal?
Mm-hmm.
And are these sufficient to achieve the goal? Necessary and sufficient is what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be able to look at your list and go, yeah, all of these things have to happen. And if any one of them doesn't happen, this is the test. If I remove project X, can I still achieve my goal? If the answer is yes, you remove project X.
Mm-hmm.
And if the answer is no, project X is necessary to achieve the goal, then it's necessary and you keep it. And then sufficient. Is there anything missing? Is there anything that we need to do to achieve the goal that isn't on this list? And if so, you need to add it. And sometimes what happens is your initial list has things that are not necessary that you can remove, right? And when you ask yourself the sufficiency test, there's things that you are missing that are actually necessary to achieve the goal. So necessary and sufficient.
I like that. I like that a lot. How would you as a tactic, so like we talked about helping people stay focused, so focus on 1 to 2, is it necessary, sufficient? What about the person who is like, that's all great, guys, but what about like, I'm unclear on how to identify my bottleneck? Like what, like the area that these projects need to be pointed towards?
Yeah. It really shouldn't be that hard. Like
it's definitely not when you have data. But I know from a lot of the people getting started, they don't have all of the data on like what's their close rate, or like lead to call, or, LTV, or some of these things that kind of help us spot from lead to, to success where the bottleneck is.
Well, let's boil it down in really simple terms, right? If you're fully at capacity, your bottleneck is time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not at capacity, you can take on more clients, but you don't have them. Your bottleneck is something in marketing and sales. If you're taking calls but not closing enough, your bottleneck is sales. If you don't have enough calls, your bottleneck is marketing.
I like it. Done and done. Okay, so now you guys know what your bottleneck is. You know that you can only focus on one or two things. And you know that of the things that you're thinking about focusing on, you need to ask yourself, is it necessary and is it sufficient? Is there anything else?
I mean, solution wise, there's lots of things to look at, right? Once you're clear on what the bottleneck is. Like, so
Yeah.
for example, the capacity one, if I'm at capacity and that's my bottleneck, I need to solve for that. Now, there's lots of ways to solve for it. You could
hmm
work with Greg and productize your service, right? You could hire people
hmm
to do the work so you can free up your own time.
hmm
You could raise your price point so you work with less clients at a higher price point, so you build capacity that way.
hmm
There's lots of things that you can do, which is
Yeah.
kind of the point, right? Like if you don't have that
Yeah.
clarity on what the bottleneck is, then you're going to, if you're trying to solve three things at the same time, you're going to gravitate towards the easiest, most obvious solutions and not fully explore the breadth of solutions available to you. And there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of solutions in every domain.
Yeah. And one is you'll always find like that one project, and maybe this is what you're saying, like I know that for a long time I find way more satisfaction working on the product side of the business than I do marketing. And so even if marketing is a bottleneck, if there's the opportunity to work on, product stuff, like, yes, I know marketing is important. It's a project on the table, but I still don't give it probably the love that it deserves, because I'm more inclined and find more joy in that. But it's like, well, the business needs marketing. And this is like maybe part of the unsexy part of being the owner of your business, the CEO of your business is like sometimes the business has needs too. Like the business isn't always there just to serve your needs as the founder. I mean, obviously, in a holistic view, it should, but like in order to have that sustainability of the business gives you the life that you want, the business is going to have needs for you to focus on certain things to unlock that.
But I think ultimately acknowledge that you have bias, right? Like, yeah,
Oh
everyone's
yeah, yeah.
got a certain part of the work, a part of the business they want to spend more time on, and others they want to spend less time on. So you have bias. It's okay. It's
hmm
normal, and you're not always going to be aware of it, or when you're using your bias. And this is why I think having, some kind of objective feedback is really important. Whether that's through, I achieve that through my team, right? I have people on my team that push back, ask questions, we strategize together, we decide what the business needs independent of what Ahmed wants, right? That could be a mentor, that could be a coach, that could be a board,
hmm
that could be an accountability partner. There's lots of ways to do it, but
hmm
I think there's no way around having somebody outside of yourself push back on some of those decisions and help you question whether you're making the right decisions in terms of your focus.
Yeah. Amen to that. Less is more. Less is more. I think it's like one thing that I know I'm working on internally, and this is for our clients. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, like around this is like, so I learned this framework from Clay Collins, and this is one of the catalysts for me that led me to kind of productization. Um, Clay Collins was the founder and was the CEO of Lead Pages before he left and they got taken over by ClickFunnels. Um, and he said, uh, the fastest way to get to seven figures, and I would just replace seven figures with whatever your goal is, but I do think the seven figures has a relevance here, is to focus on the five ones, is to serve one avatar, selling them one solution, following one conversion method, using one traffic source, and you do that for 1 year. And you do that, like, that's the fastest way. And I know for our clients, like, we kind of give them that framework. It's like, look, like, yes, you can offer up an additional solution down the line when it makes sense, but like you really don't need to. Like you don't need to be selling from the phone, also selling from the DMs, also selling from stage, and also selling from webinars one to many. Like figure out the one that you're going to get really good at and make all of your sales through that one vehicle, right? You don't need to be on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these Facebook. Like what is the one way that you're going to drive traffic into that conversion vehicle to sell that one thing to that one person. And, it's when I heard that, I was like, oh crap, like I had the one avatar, but I had way too many solutions and all the other things. And we got focused and we hit our first 6-figure month in less than 11 months. And I was like, whoa, this works, you know? Uh, and so I mean, like even from the focusing piece, not even just on how many goals you're targeting, but like the, I think just the model in itself, like, I don't know, the tech, and you can't scroll through Facebook without thinking that you need an appointment setter or new closers, or you have to
Mm.
be running Facebook ads, or outbound, is the way. It's like if you haven't, whatever, maybe it is, but you have to like focus on one of those things, like one way.
So there's so yeah, a couple of things. If I think about my journey, uh, we launched our current flagship program, 90 Day Pipeline, 5 years ago. We're just coming up on the 5 year anniversary. Year one program, 90 Day Pipeline, one avatar, one conversion method, one everything, including traffic source, LinkedIn organic
Mhm.
was year one.
Mhm.
Year two, added in Facebook ads. That was year two.
Mhm.
Year three, added in YouTube ads. That was year three, right? Year
Mhm.
four, did a bunch of stuff on the fulfillment side. So just like focused on delivery, right? And then since
Mhm.
then, it's been a matter of managing all of the above. But we essentially just added one traffic source at a time and spent like almost exactly a year getting each traffic source to work
Yeah.
and kept everything the same.
Yeah.
And it's only now that we're looking into other products and other things that we can sell. And that's like 5 years into the game.
Yeah.
And the thing I think is really important that you talked about just now is this requires you to be very skeptical of anything new.
Mhm.
Be very skeptical of anything new. Remember, the marketer's job is to convince you that there's something new and exciting and that everything old is dead. That's literally what we do. Okay.
Which, if you're an agency, the old agency model is dead, for the record.
This is what we do, right? So, first of all, I think part of this is just get off social media. Like I don't even know my Facebook login anymore. If I wanted to log on, I don't know how. I'm on Instagram, but I get mostly clothing ads on Instagram. I don't get
That's
I
where
don't
I
get
bought this
gurus in
shirt.
my feed. Yeah, I think I just too much shopping through Instagram ads that they just know. It's like give this guy clothes and he'll buy. So I'm not consuming a whole lot, and that makes it a
Yeah.
lot easier. I don't know what the latest guru was talking about necessarily, nor do I care, um, because they're good. We're good. Yeah, Greg is good. I'm good. The other folks are good. We're really good at convincing you that everything you're doing is dumb and stupid, and you're wasting your time, and you need to try this other thing, or you're crazy. We're really good at that, right? Now, I like to think the people that I'm speaking to are the people who already see it that way and see the value in focusing on the thing I want them to focus on. But there are other marketers who I think are really good at just kind of like trashing everything but the thing that they're trying to sell you.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in that. And there's a lot of hype. And so
Yeah.
I think you got to be really careful about, even consuming that material. And when you do, when it comes into your feed, just being very skeptical and being very aware of the really hard cost about shifting focus.
Yeah.
Doing that thing means not doing something else that you're already doing that you decided was important. And that shift is expensive.
Yeah, I forget who I heard it from, and I'm gonna botch the statistic, but actually, I think I heard it from Todd Herman. Every time you context switch from one activity to a different, you lose like 10% of time of your time in a day. So if we think about your day as 8 hours, if you switch 3-4 times, like you're approaching like 40% of your day that is literally lost in to you're not getting stuff done, at least meaningful stuff done. And I know people that context switch way more than that. Like I could argue that like at first glance that many people I know probably, even if they work 10-hour days, which I know some of them do, they're probably actually doing like 4 hours of real work. And it's like, and that's a lot. Like you're trying to do too much. Like, so you're juggling, like jumping from like deep work to a sales call back to deep work. It's like, I mean, if I try to take a sales call and then try to do anything creative, like good luck. Like I I can't switch into that mode. It takes me like 60 to 90 minutes just to get into the flow in that mode, you know? And so then switching right out of it is crazy. So I think that kind of the simplicity of that framework is something that I know that we teach our clients and has really helped me. And again, like you're a testament to this. I know I am too. Like everyone that I know, like I mean, I've like people that I look up to that are doing 10, 20 million, they have 2 or 3 offers. Like that's it, to a very specific person. And so like it can totally be done. And some of them don't even use ads. You know, it's like they're still rocking their organic, like so it can be done. Again, most of these things work as long as you give them the time and the consistency, the consistent effort, which I don't think a lot of people do
I think
because
that's
they're
the
spread
thing.
too thin.
Everything works. Everything
Yeah.
works. Everything can work if you make it work. You still got people cold calling. Cold calling works.
Yeah.
It might not work for you immediately. Can you make it work? Yeah, you can probably make it work. Should you? I mean, I don't know. Like, is that the right strategy for you? That's not my point. I'm not I'm not saying go
Yeah.
to cold calling. But like technically any strategy under the sun with the right amount of focus and energy and the right execution could conceivably work. Some are better
Yeah.
than others, but I promise you what you're working on right now, it can work if you make it work.
Yeah. I think that's where we should focus. Leave it at that. So hopefully this is helpful, guys. We kind of hopped on and this was on my mind. And I think as you're maybe starting to plan for Q3 and the rest of the year, uh, maybe have a rethink or a look at how much you were trying to get done, and maybe focus on the few and mighty that will be most likely to get you to your goals. We'll catch you next time.